You filthy, broke-ass monkey. Get your hands off that menu. I told you, the salmon is not for your kind. What part of that don't you understand? Do you think because you somehow scammed your way into this cabin, you're suddenly on par with actual paying first-class passengers? You make me sick. Honestly, the nerve of some people, wandering in here dressed like you just crawled out of a dumpster, demanding the best of everything. You probably can't even afford the air you're breathing in this cabin, let alone a gourmet meal. Now, are you going to order the slop from economy like a good little charity case, or do I have to call security and have you dragged off this plane for being disruptive and accusing me, a loyal employee of 10 years, of not doing my job? Can you believe your ears? This is Karen, an air hostess whose face was twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated hate, screaming, yes, screaming, these vile, racist, and demeaning words at a passenger. And not just any passenger, but Mark James Sterling, a black man seated calmly in first class, seat 1A. He was dressed in a comfortable, high-quality tracksuit, clearly chosen for a long flight, but in Karen's poisoned eyes, his attire, his very presence, was an affront. She wasn't just having a bad day, she was unleashing a torrent of prejudice that would make your stomach churn, right there in front of everyone. This wasn't a simple disagreement, this was a verbal lynching at 30,000 feet, a disgusting power trip fueled by years of unchecked bigotry and a sickening sense of entitlement. Mr. Sterling, bless his soul, he tried to remain composed, his voice steady but with an undeniable steel beneath it, the kind of calm that often precedes a devastating storm. He looked her right in the eye, this hate-spewing harpy in a uniform, and said, "Ma'am, my ticket clearly states first class. I am entitled to the same service and the same menu as every other passenger in this cabin. Your assumptions about me are offensive, unprofessional, and frankly, deeply disturbing. I expect you to bring me the meal I ordered without any further insults or commentary on my appearance or your perception of my financial status." But oh, that just fanned the flames of Karen's unholy rage even higher. It was like throwing gasoline on a wildfire of pure malice. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a venomous hiss that still managed to carry through the cabin, hiss laced with the ugliest stereotypes imaginable. "Oh, I see your ticket," she sneered, practically spitting the words out. "It's amazing what forgeries people can get these days, or maybe you cashed in your welfare check for this one moment of pretending you're important. But let's be brutally honest, honey, you don't look like you belong here. You smell like you don't belong here. This is for refined people, people with class, not for, well, not for your sort." And then, as if her previous slurs weren't enough, she let loose another barrage of racist filth, words so vile I wouldn't dare repeat them all, but monkey and broke were definitely her favorites, repeated like a demonic chant. The other passengers in first class, they were a mixed bag of reactions, let me tell you. Some gasped, their faces masks of shock and horror. One older lady, Miss Davis, I later learned her name was, her eyes narrowed and she subtly, almost imperceptibly, angled her phone, its camera lens glinting. Smart woman. Others, however, and this is the part that really boils your blood, some of them looked away, pretending they hadn't heard, or worse, a few even had these faint, smug little smiles, as if Karen was performing some kind of service by putting him in his place. The absolute gall. And the purser, a weaselly-looking man named Mark, he finally sauntered over, not with concern for Mr. Sterling, oh no, but with this annoyed look, like Mr. Sterling was the one causing him an inconvenience by being racially abused. Mark addressed Mr. Sterling, completely ignoring Karen's disgusting outburst, with a tone that dripped with false authority and impatience. "Sir, is there a problem here? We need you to keep your voice down. You are disturbing the other passengers. If you cannot conduct yourself in a calm and orderly manner, I will have to inform the captain." Can you believe that? The victim, the man being subjected to this torrent of racist hate, was being told he was the problem. Karen, seizing her moment, immediately started playing the damsel in distress, crocodile tears welling up in her eyes as she whined, "Oh, Mark, thank goodness." This man, he became aggressive. He was shouting. He threatened me when I politely explained we were out of the salmon. He's just trying to cause trouble, probably wants a free flight or something. The sheer audacity, the wicked duplicity of this woman, it was breathtakingly evil. Mr. Sterling stood his ground, calmly stating, "This employee has subjected me to a barrage of racist insults and is refusing me service based on my race and appearance. I expect this to be handled professionally." But Karen just doubled down, her voice rising again, "He's lying. He's the one who started it. You're all my witnesses," she shrieked, looking around for support, her eyes landing on a terrified-looking junior flight attendant named Anna, who looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. This was pure chaos, an explosion of raw, ugly prejudice, and the question hung heavy in the air, would this hateful woman get away with it, or was she about to learn the biggest lesson of her miserable life? The moral stakes were sky-high, and Mr. Sterling, though outwardly composed, was about to reach for his own kind of weapon, his phone. And that single call, oh boy, that call was going to unleash a reckoning that would make Karen's head spin right off her shoulders. Let's talk about James Sterling. This man wasn't born with a platinum spoon in his mouth, oh no. He clawed his way up from the grittiest streets, a place where dreams went to die, suffocated by poverty and the ever-present sting of discrimination. Imagine a young boy, brilliant and ambitious, told repeatedly by the world that he was less than, that his skin color was a barrier he could never overcome. That was a blow that could break most spirits, but not James. Each racist jeer, each slammed door, each opportunity denied purely because of prejudice, it didn't break him, it forged him. It tempered his resolve into something unbreakable, a diamond forged under immense, crushing pressure. That was his first incredible turnaround, transforming their hate into his fuel. He devoured books while other kids played, he worked 2, sometimes 3, grueling jobs to scrape together tuition for a college that barely wanted him there, facing down professors who dismissed his intellect and classmates who mocked his aspirations. He endured countless blows, the kind of soul-destroying microaggressions that chip away at your humanity, day after day. But with every insult, he just stood taller. He built his tech empire, Innovate Solutions, from a dusty garage with flickering lights and second-hand equipment into a global powerhouse, a beacon of innovation that employed thousands, changing lives and communities for the better. He became the living embodiment of the underdog who not only survived but triumphed, a massive turnaround that spat in the face of every bigot who ever doubted him. And through it all, through the billions he earned and the accolades he received, James Sterling never forgot the sting of being treated like dirt. That's why he chose comfort on that flight. That unassuming tracksuit wasn't a sign of being broke, as that vile Karen had shrieked. It was a conscious choice, a reminder of his roots, a way to stay connected to the ordinary world. He was on his way to finalize a monumental deal, a deal that wasn't just about money, but about creating opportunities in underserved communities, the very kind of communities he came from. The irony was so thick, so tragically poignant, that the woman who was about to deny him basic decency had no clue she was spitting on a man who had dedicated his life to uplifting others, a man whose quiet influence reached the highest echelons of power. Now, let's flip the coin and delve into the festering soul of Karen Olsen. Where did such concentrated malice come from? Was she born evil? Probably not. But she chose her path, every single bitter, resentful step of the way. Karen's life was a tapestry woven with threads of mediocrity and simmering rage. She'd always felt overlooked, perpetually convinced that the world owed her a glittering existence she never bothered to earn. Promotions passed her by, not because of injustice, but because her work was sloppy, her attitude toxic. Each perceived slight, each failure she brought upon herself, she twisted into a grievance against a world she felt had cheated her. This was her tragic blow, a self-inflicted wound of victimhood she nursed with poisonous pride. She found a kindred spirit in Chloe, another flight attendant whose soul was just as shriveled and mean. They were a two-woman coven of negativity, cackling in the galley as they dissected passengers, judging them on their clothes, their accents, the price of their watches. I remember hearing about one incident, a young mother flying alone with a crying baby. Karen and Chloe didn't offer help. They rolled their eyes, made loud, sighing complaints about the noise, and even, accidentally, skipped her beverage service. The mother, already stressed, was reduced to tears, another quiet blow delivered by Karen's casual cruelty. That was their sick entertainment, their way of feeling powerful by making others feel small. A disgusting turnaround from what their jobs were supposed to be, service and care. And here's the truly infuriating part, the turnaround that cemented her arrogance. Karen had faced complaints before, oh yes. There were whispers, formal grievances even, from passengers who felt targeted by her snide remarks, her dismissive attitude, particularly minority passengers. But each time, she'd wriggled out of it. She'd turn on the waterworks, play the victim, or have a lenient supervisor, like Mark the purser would later prove to be, sweep it under the rug. These weren't learning experiences for her, they were victories. Each escape reinforced her belief that she was untouchable, that she could say and do whatever she wanted without consequence. The system itself had delivered a blow to accountability, inadvertently grooming her into the monster Mr. Sterling was now facing. She felt invincible. So, on this fateful flight, from the very moment Mr. Sterling stepped onto that plane, Karen had him marked. His quiet confidence, his simple attire, his black skin, it was like a red rag to a bull for her prejudiced mind. The blows started subtly. His polite request for a blanket was met with a curt nod and a 20-minute delay. His call button was seemingly invisible to her, while the white businessman across the aisle received her fawning attention before his finger even left the button. She'd offer Mr. Sterling a drink with a tight, plastic smile that didn't reach her cold eyes, then turn to the passenger next to him with a dazzling beam and an overly solicitous, "Can I get you anything else at all, sir? Another champagne, perhaps?" Each interaction was a carefully calibrated insult, a microaggression designed to demean, to make him feel unwelcome. Mr. Sterling, a man who had navigated a lifetime of such slights, initially chose the path of weary tolerance. He was tired, focused on the monumental task ahead of him. He didn't want a scene. He just wanted to get through the flight. He'd seen 1,000 Karens in his life, in boardrooms, in banks, in restaurants. He usually let their petty hatred wash over him, a testament to his incredible self-control. But there's a limit to even a saint's patience, and Karen, in her blind arrogance, was about to pole vault right over it. The denial of the meal, the public accusation of being broke, the vile racist slurs, that wasn't a microaggression. That was a declaration of war on his very humanity. That was the blow that finally made something snap. You see, these two souls, James Sterling and Karen Olsen, were on an unavoidable collision course, hurtling towards each other from opposite ends of the human experience. One, a testament to resilience, dignity, and the quiet power of earned success. The other, a festering embodiment of bitterness, entitlement, and the loud, ugly face of prejudice. Karen, in her monumental ignorance, thought she was delivering a crushing blow to a nobody, a man she could easily squash under the heel of her perceived authority. She had no concept of the turnaround that was brewing, no idea that the David Mr. Sterling had called wasn't some insignificant friend, but a name that could make the very foundations of her airline tremble. She thought she was untouchable. She was about to find out just how fragile her hateful little world truly was, and that the man she tried to break had the power to shatter it into a million pieces. The silence after that call was deceptive. It was the eerie calm before a hurricane named Justice, and it was heading directly for her. The second Mr. Sterling's fingers even grazed his phone, Karen, that she-devil in a flight attendant's uniform, she was already back in the galley, her eyes darting around like a cornered rat. Chloe, her sniveling shadow, was right behind her, wringing her hands. And then came Mark, the purser, his face a mask of feigned concern that couldn't quite hide the tremor of fear in his jowls. They huddled together, a vile little triumvirate of malice, their hushed voices weaving the first threads of their poisonous narrative. "He's calling someone," Karen hissed, her voice tight with a strange mix of panic and defiant rage. "He's trying to make trouble, trying to get us fired. We have to get our story straight, now. He was the aggressor, remember? He was unhinged, abusive. This was their first coordinated blow, the immediate construction of a lie. Chloe, ever the eager accomplice, chimed in, her voice dripping with manufactured outrage. Exactly, Karen. He was a nightmare from the moment he boarded. Demanding, rude, clearly looking for a handout. You were just defending yourself, defending the airline standards. I saw him lunge at you. A blatant, disgusting lie, a complete turnaround of what truly happened, but in their twisted echo chamber, it was becoming their gospel. Mark, the spineless purser, instead of asserting any semblance of authority or demanding the truth, he just nodded along, his eyes calculating. Okay, he muttered, so, a disruptive passenger. Verbally abusive. Potentially a security risk. We need a united front. The captain needs to be briefed that we handled a volatile situation, that we were the professionals here. He wasn't interested in justice, he was interested in damage control for his own career, another sickening blow to Mr. Sterling's hope for fairness. Then came the most despicable part of their immediate conspiracy, a betrayal so cold it would freeze your soul. Karen's icy gaze fell upon Anna, the junior flight attendant, who had witnessed the entire horrifying exchange, her face pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and disgust. Anna was their loose end, the one person who could shatter their lies with a single honest word. Karen glided towards her, a predator stalking her prey. Anna, sweetie, Karen cooed, her voice suddenly like poison honey, you were there. You saw how aggressive Mr. Sterling became, didn't you? How he shouted and made those awful accusations when I politely informed him about the meal. You'll back us up, won't you? For the crew. For your friends. It was a loaded question, a veiled threat wrapped in a sickening appeal to a loyalty Anna didn't owe them. This was a brutal blow aimed directly at Anna's conscience. Anna looked like a deer caught in headlights, her lips trembling. You could see the war raging within her, the desire to speak the truth, to defend the innocent man she saw being verbally crucified, versus the paralyzing fear of Karen's wrath, of Chloe's scorn, of Mark's power to ruin her fledgling career. I. She stammered, looking down, unable to meet Karen's reptilian stare. Karen's eyes narrowed. It's a simple yes or no, Anna, she pressed, her voice losing its sweetness, turning sharp and menacing. Are you with us, or are you with him? Think very carefully. Your career could depend on it. And in that moment, under that crushing pressure, Anna just wilted. A tiny, almost imperceptible nod was all Karen needed. It was a devastating blow, the truth suffocated by fear, another voice of potential support silenced, a shocking turnaround where evil seemed to be consolidating its power unopposed. And the conspiracy didn't just stay within the crew, it began to seep out into the cabin, poisoning the atmosphere further. While Mrs. Davis, bless her observant soul, continued to discreetly film, her jaw set in grim determination, a tiny, silent act of rebellion, a promise of a future turnaround, others were less noble. A portly businessman in seat 2D, Mr. Henderson, who had been observing with a smug air, leaned across to his companion and declared in a stage whisper loud enough for several rows to hear, honestly, what is this airline coming to? Letting riffraff like that into first class. Good on that hostess for standing up to him. Some people just don't know their place. Can you believe the nerve? Another blow to Mr. Sterling, another voice validating Karen's disgusting prejudice, making her feel even more justified, more powerful. It was a chilling reminder of how easily some people will side with the aggressor if the victim doesn't fit their preconceived notions of who belongs. Emboldened by this perceived support and Anna's coerced silence, Mark the purser scurried off to the cockpit, his face a carefully constructed mask of grave concern. He fed the captain a meticulously crafted narrative painting Mr. Sterling as an unhinged, aggressive troublemaker who had verbally assaulted the crew and threatened flight safety. The captain, isolated, relying on the report of his senior purser, a man he presumably trusted, had no reason to doubt the fabricated tale. And then came the most crushing blow yet, a public declaration that solidified Karen's apparent victory. The captain's voice, stern and official, crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We are aware of a disturbance in the first-class cabin. I want to remind all passengers that interfering with the duties of a flight crew is a federal offense. Any individual who continues to behave in a disruptive manner, fails to comply with crew instructions, or poses a threat to the safety and comfort of other passengers will be met by security upon arrival and may face severe legal consequences. Please remain calm and cooperate with your flight attendants." The message, though general, was clearly aimed at Mr. Sterling. It was a public rebuke, a systemic validation of Karen's lies. Imagine the humiliation, the despair. He, the victim, was now being publicly branded as a potential criminal. Karen shot him a look of pure, unadulterated triumph, a sickening smirk playing on her lips. Chloe giggled audibly behind her hand. They had done it. They had twisted the narrative so completely that the entire aircraft, from the captain down, now saw Mr. Sterling as the villain. This was a massive, devastating turnaround. It seemed like the forces of hate and deceit had won a decisive victory. Karen felt invincible, untouchable. As Mr. Sterling calmly continued with his phone call, his face an unreadable mask, Karen leaned over, her voice a low, taunting whisper full of venom. "Still on the phone to your mommy, you pathetic loser? Or are you calling the zoo to tell them one of their monkeys escaped? Nobody can help you now. Nobody cares. You are nothing." But she was wrong. So profoundly, catastrophically wrong. That call wasn't to his mommy. That call was a lifeline, a beacon of truth in a suffocating sea of lies. The name, David, echoed with a silent power Karen couldn't even begin to comprehend. The stakes had been raised to an almost unbearable level. Mr. Sterling was now officially an aggressor, in the eyes of the flight command, backed by a conspiracy of lies from the crew and the apathy or outright support of some passengers. Could one phone call, to one, David, truly unravel this intricate web of deceit? Could it pierce through the layers of prejudice and systemic failure? Everything, absolutely everything, now hinged on the answer to that one, desperate question. The air crackled with unspoken tension, the fate of careers, reputations, and the very idea of justice hanging precariously in the balance, waiting for the voice on the other end of that line to speak. Okay, the conspiracy is thick, the lies are suffocating, and Mr. Sterling has made that one desperate, enigmatic call to David. Karen is preening, convinced of her absolute victory, while the entire system, from the purser to the captain, seems to have swallowed her poison hook, line, and sinker. Now, we plunge into the heart of darkness, Section 4, the breaking point. This is where the pressure becomes unbearable, where souls are tested to their very limits, and where the all is lost moment will hit you like a physical blow, leaving you gasping, wondering if there's any justice left in this cruel, cruel world. But remember, it's often at our lowest point that the first seeds of a truly spectacular turnaround begin to sprout. The silence that followed Mr. Sterling's call was a torment in itself, a heavy, suffocating blanket woven with doubt and rising despair. Minutes stretched into an eternity, each tick of the cabin clock a hammer blow against hope. Had the call even gone through properly? Was David too busy, too important, too distant to care about one man's humiliation on one flight? Or worse, was David just another link in a chain of indifference? Karen certainly thought so. She paraded up and down the aisle, her hips swaying with a new, almost manic arrogance, occasionally shooting Mr. Sterling glances brimming with contemptuous pity, as if he were a squashed bug she'd already forgotten. This prolonged silence, this nothingness, was a fresh blow, perhaps the cruelest yet, as it allowed the poison of hopelessness to seep in. Inside Mr. James Sterling, a silent war was raging. Outwardly, he was a statue of composure, his gaze fixed on the clouds drifting past his window. But beneath that stoic exterior, his soul was at its absolute breaking point. This wasn't just about a denied meal or a string of vile insults on one Tuesday afternoon. No. This was the culmination of a lifetime of indignities, big and small, 1,000 papercuts of prejudice that had finally drawn blood. He remembered being a child, watching his mother being disrespected in a store. He remembered a college professor telling him his ideas were surprisingly articulate for someone like him. He remembered a crucial bank loan, one that could have launched his first company years earlier, denied for reasons that felt suspiciously vague. Each memory was a fresh blow, a ghost of past battles rising to mock his current predicament. But this time, something was different. This wasn't the weary resignation he'd sometimes felt in his youth. This was a cold, clear, diamond-hard resolve. This calculated, public, and utterly shameless degradation by Karen, amplified by the complicity of her crew and the dismissive judgment of the captain, had pushed him beyond mere anger. It had ignited a righteous fury, a demand not for revenge, but for accountability so profound it would shake the very foundations of the airline that allowed such rot to fester. He wasn't breaking down, he was breaking through to a new level of determination. This internal shift was his own quiet turnaround, a decision that this would be the last time such blatant hatred would go unchallenged if he had anything to say about it, regardless of what David did or didn't do. Karen, meanwhile, was reveling in her perceived omnipotence, her cruelty escalating with her confidence. She made a great show of lavishing attention on Mr. Henderson, the odious businessman who had supported her. "Another champagne for you, Mr. Henderson?" "Of course. Anything for our valued guests," she trilled, her voice carrying a deliberate blow of exclusion aimed squarely at Mr. Sterling, who hadn't been offered so much as a glass of water since the altercation. She'd walk past Mr. Sterling's seat, humming cheerfully, sometimes accidentally bumping his armrest, then offering a sickly sweet, insincere apology. Chloe and Mark were her adoring audience, chuckling at her petty torments, convinced they were untouchable, part of the winning team. Their arrogance was a spectacle of blissful ignorance, a turnaround into complete moral bankruptcy. And then, the all is lost moment truly descended, heavy and bleak. The flight droned on. The city lights began to appear far below as the plane started its initial descent. Still nothing. No announcement from the captain reversing his earlier stance. No frantic calls to the galley. No sign whatsoever that Mr. Sterling's plea to David had even registered. A leaden weight of despair settled in the first-class cabin. Even Mrs. Davis, who had been watching with such fierce hope, now looked crestfallen, her shoulders slumped. Anna, the young flight attendant, avoided eye contact with everyone, her face a picture of misery and guilt. It was over. Karen had won. Prejudice, lies, and systemic failure had triumphed. Mr. Sterling sat alone, drenched and ignored, a monumental figure of success reduced to a pariah, a testament to the ugly truth that sometimes, the bad guys simply get away with it. This was the absolute nadir, a crushing blow to every expectation of justice. But just when the darkness seemed complete, just when you thought there wasn't a shred of hope left, a tiny, almost imperceptible flicker occurred. It wasn't much, just a subtle shift in the atmosphere. As the plane banked for its final approach, Mark, the purser, who had been preening himself for landing, suddenly paused. He'd been idly glancing at the small communication screen at his station, the one used for internal messages from the ground. His smug expression wavered, then froze. A strange pallor crept over his face, chasing away the ruddy confidence. He leaned closer to the screen, his eyes widening almost comically, his jaw going slack. He reread whatever message had appeared, his hand, the one not gripping the counter, beginning to tremble ever so slightly. This wasn't the look of a man expecting a routine landing update. This was the look of a man who had just seen a ghost, or worse, his own career flashing before his eyes. Chloe, noticing his sudden transformation, asked with a giggle, "What's wrong, Mark? Did they forget to roll out the red carpet for us?" But Mark didn't answer. He just kept staring at that screen, his face now a ghastly shade of gray. He licked his lips, a bead of sweat trickling down his temple despite the cool cabin air. He looked up, his eyes darting frantically towards Mr. Sterling, then to Karen, then back to the screen. The smugness was gone, replaced by a raw, dawning terror. The "all is lost" moment was still heavy in the air, but suddenly, miraculously, a tiny crack had appeared in the wall of despair. What was on that screen? What message from the ground could possibly wipe that arrogant smirk off Mark's face and replace it with such palpable fear? The plane was about to touch down, and with it, it seemed, a reckoning that no one, especially not Karen and her crew, had ever seen coming. The comeback, the comeback was no longer a distant dream, it was a terrifying, imminent reality hurtling towards them at landing speed. As the plane finally rumbled to a stop at the gate, the usual post-landing bustle felt charged with an almost unbearable tension. Mark the purser was practically vibrating with anxiety, his eyes darting from the cockpit door to the disembarking passengers, then nervously towards Mr. Sterling, who remained seated, an island of calm in a sea of impending chaos. Mark tried to whisper something to Karen, something urgent, his voice cracking. "Karen, that message, it said senior management, they're meeting the flight, and they specifically mentioned him." He gestured wildly with a shaking hand towards Mr. Sterling. This was the first real blow to Karen's impervious confidence, seeing Mark, her usually pliant enabler, so utterly terrified. But Karen, still floating on the noxious fumes of her earlier triumph, just scoffed, though her voice lacked its usual conviction, a tiny turnaround in her bravado. "Senior management? Don't be ridiculous, Mark. It's probably just a surprise inspection. They do that sometimes. And so what if they mentioned him? He probably lodged some pathetic complaint. They'll pat him on the head and send him away with a voucher for a stale sandwich. Honestly, you're such a worrier." Chloe, ever the sycophant, echoed her, "Yeah, Mark, chill out. We handled him. We're heroes." But their forced laughter sounded hollow, even to their own ears, as they saw Mr. Sterling calmly gather his single carry-on, his demeanor utterly unchanged, utterly unbothered. "And now, brace yourselves for the revelation that changes everything." The David Mr. Sterling had called, the name that had hung in the air like a loaded gun. That wasn't some mid-level customer service drone. That wasn't a sympathetic supervisor. Oh no. David was none other than David Harrison, the global chief executive officer of the entire airline. Yes, you heard me right. The top dog, the big cheese, the man whose signature was on every single paycheck, including Karen's, Chloe's, and Mark's. This was the plot twist to end all plot twists, blow so massive it was about to vaporize Karen's entire reality. Flashback, quick and impactful, a younger James Sterling and a younger David Harrison, perhaps at a charity gala, or on a golf course, clasping hands warmly. David's voice is earnest. "James, you're not just a valued board advisor for this airline, you're one of my oldest and dearest friends. You represent the integrity and vision we strive for. If anything, and I mean anything, on any of our flights is ever less than perfect for you, or for anyone you see being mistreated, you call me directly. I mean it. This wasn't just a casual acquaintance, this was a deep bond of friendship and mutual respect forged over decades. Mr. Sterling wasn't just a passenger, he was a confidant of the CEO, a man whose opinion David Harrison valued immensely, a man who had the CEO's personal, direct line. Karen had picked a fight with a hornet, blissfully unaware that the hornet owned the entire damn nest. The script hadn't just been flipped, it had been shredded, rewritten in fire, and was about to be shoved down her ignorant throat. This turnaround was cosmic in its irony. As the first-class passengers began to file out, a formidable group of individuals in impeccably tailored airline executive suits materialized at the jet bridge entrance, their faces grim, their presence radiating an aura of absolute authority. This wasn't your usual welcoming committee. Leading them was a woman who looked like she could make diamonds crack under the pressure of her gaze, Ms. Eleanor Periwinkle, the Senior Vice President of Global In-Flight Operations, a legend in the industry, known for her razor-sharp intellect and zero tolerance for incompetence or misconduct. Airport security personnel flanked them, their expressions unreadable. The air suddenly became thick with unspoken, high-stakes drama. This was a blow of officialdom that silenced the entire disembarkation process. Karen, Chloe, and Mark, positioned near the aircraft door to offer their insincere farewells, froze mid-smile. Their blood collectively turned to ice water. Ms. Periwinkle's eyes scanned the disembarking passengers, and the moment she spotted Mr. Sterling, her severe expression softened, just a fraction, into one of profound respect and concern. She moved towards him, completely ignoring the dumbstruck flight crew. "Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice crisp but deferential, "I am Eleanor Periwinkle. On behalf of CEO David Harrison and the entire airline, please accept our most profound and unreserved apologies for the unacceptable experience you were subjected to on this flight. Mr. Harrison has been trying to reach you. He's currently airborne himself but will be in contact personally at the earliest opportunity. We have a private VIP suite arranged for you, and your onward transportation is confirmed. Please, allow us to escort you." It was a turnaround so stunning, so absolute, that Karen's jaw literally dropped. Her carefully constructed facade of superiority shattered into a million pieces. The man she had called broke, monkey, a nobody, was being treated like visiting royalty by one of the airline's most powerful executives. The public humiliation was exquisite in its symmetry. She tried to interject, to salvage something, her voice a desperate squawk, "Ms. Periwinkle. Excuse me. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. This passenger, he was the one who was abusive. He attacked me. My crew will verify." Ms. Periwinkle turned her head slowly, fixing Karen with a glare so frigid it could have flash-froze a volcano. "Ms. Olsen, is it?" she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "Your version of events has been noted. Along with several other, shall we say, conflicting accounts, including digital evidence that is already being reviewed at the highest levels. We will address your conduct, and that of your entire crew, in a more formal setting. For now, you will wait." That single word, wait, delivered with such icy disdain, was a more brutal blow than any shout could have been. Mark looked like he was about to throw up. Chloe was visibly trembling, her face ashen. Anna, the junior flight attendant, who had been cowering near the galley, witnessed this entire exchange, her eyes wide. You could almost see the gears turning in her head, the fear that had paralyzed her now battling with a dawning realization that the monstrous Karen was not invincible, that telling the truth might actually be safe, might actually be rewarded. This was the beginning of a potential turnaround for Anna, a flicker of courage ignited by the shocking downfall of her tormentor. The power dynamic had not just shifted, it had been completely inverted, live and in color, for all to see. Then, Ms. Periwinkle, without even a backward glance at the shell-shocked Karen, turned to the equally bewildered captain, who had just emerged from the cockpit. "Captain Miller," she stated, her voice ringing with undeniable authority, "as per direct orders from CEO Harrison's office, your entire flight crew, yourself included for immediate debriefing, are to be escorted to a secure airport facility. You are all grounded, effective immediately. Your flight credentials and company IDs are to be surrendered. Your licenses are provisionally suspended pending a full, and I assure you, exhaustive internal investigation into what appears to be a catastrophic failure of professional conduct and basic human decency." Suspended? Grounded? You can't do this to us. Karen finally shrieked, her voice cracking with disbelief and pure, undiluted rage, the last vestiges of her composure utterly obliterated. This is all his fault. That lying. But her words were cut off as security personnel moved calmly but firmly to surround the crew. The plot twist had reached its crescendo. That nobody had brought the full weight of the airline crashing down on their heads. The game had irrevocably changed. The maximum dramatic tension was now a palpable entity, choking the air. What horrors would the investigation unearth? How complete would Karen's destruction be? And what was the next blow going to be in this rapidly escalating corporate nightmare? The fallout was just beginning, and it promised to be absolutely spectacular. Imagine this, a sterile, windowless conference room tucked away in the bowels of the airport, the air thick with fear and the metallic tang of impending doom. Karen, Chloe, and Mark are slumped around a large table, their faces a ghastly palette of green and gray. The rest of the flight crew are there too, looking shell-shocked, collateral damage in a war they didn't start but didn't stop either. At the head of the table sits Ms. Periwinkle, a figure of icy authority, flanked by a stern-faced airline lawyer and a grim HR executive. And looming over them all, from a giant video screen on the wall, is the thunderous, unsmiling face of CEO David Harrison himself. His eyes, even through the screen, seem to pierce right through their pathetic defenses. This isn't an inquiry, this is an inquisition, and the first blow is the crushing silence, punctuated only by Karen's ragged breathing. Ms. Periwinkle begins, her voice calm but carrying the unmistakable weight of command. We have initiated a formal, high-priority investigation into the events that transpired on Flight 712, specifically concerning the egregious mistreatment of Mr. James Sterling. Let me be unequivocally clear, this airline has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, harassment, and abuse of any kind. The initial reports, and I must say, the preliminary digital evidence we've already reviewed, are profoundly disturbing. We will start with you, Ms. Olsen. Karen tries to bluster, to reassert her narrative of being the victim. This is an outrage. I told you, he was the one. He was aggressive, threatening. I was just doing my job, protecting my passengers, protecting the airline. It's a desperate, pathetic attempt, a blow against her own credibility because her voice is trembling, her eyes shifty. Chloe and Mark weakly try to corroborate Karen's story, their earlier bravado completely gone, replaced by a stammering, unconvincing recitation of their fabricated alibi. But their united front is about as sturdy as a house of cards in a hurricane. Under Ms. Periwinkle's sharp, relentless questioning, their stories start to fray at the edges, contradictions emerging, their carefully rehearsed lies beginning to sound like the desperate babbling of guilty children. Each incisive question from Ms. Periwinkle, each steely glare from CEO Harrison on the screen, is another blow to their crumbling defense. The pressure is immense, suffocating. Then comes the moment that changes everything, the turnaround that cracks the conspiracy wide open. Ms. Periwinkle turns her attention to Anna Kowalski, the junior flight attendant, who has been sitting pale and silent, looking like she might shatter. Ms. Kowalski, Ms. Periwinkle says, her voice softening almost imperceptibly but still firm, we understand you were a direct witness to the entire interaction between Ms. Olsen and Mr. Sterling. We need your honest account. And I want to assure you, unequivocally, that you are in a safe environment. This airline values integrity above all else. You will face no retaliation for telling the truth. In fact, your honesty is paramount to us right now. Karen shoots Anna a look so venomous it could kill, a silent, desperate blow of intimidation. But it's too late. Anna looks at Ms. Periwinkle, then at the imposing but somehow reassuring face of CEO Harrison, and something inside her, something brave and true, finally breaks free. Tears streaming down her face, her voice trembling but clear, Anna unleashes the floodgates of truth. It's not what they're saying, she blurts out, the words tumbling over each other. Mr. Sterling, he was polite, he was calm, even when Ms. Olsen. Karen started screaming at him. She called him those horrible names. Broke, monkey, those awful racist slurs. She said he didn't belong in first class. She denied him his meal because he was black and dressed simply. She spilled the water on him on purpose. I saw it all. And then in the galley. Karen, Chloe, and Mr. Henderson, they cooked up this story that Mr. Sterling was the aggressor. They told me I had to lie, that I had to say he was abusive. Karen threatened my career if I didn't. It's a torrent, a confession, a damning indictment, a massive, devastating blow that obliterates the last vestiges of Karen, Chloe, and Mark's credibility. The truth, raw and ugly, is finally out. As if on cue, an aide enters and hands Ms. Periwinkle a tablet. "Ma'am," the aide says, "this was just forwarded to us by legal. It's from a passenger on Flight 712, a Mrs. Amelia Davis. She provided a sworn affidavit and, this." Ms. Periwinkle taps the screen, and the conference room is suddenly filled with the sounds of Karen's shrill, hate-filled voice, spewing her racist filth, the visuals undeniably clear, Karen's contorted face, Mr. Sterling's dignified composure, the deliberate water spill. It's all there. Irrefutable. The video is a nuclear blow. Karen lets out a strangled gasp, her face turning a blotchy, furious red. Chloe dissolves into hysterical sobs. Mark just stares at the screen, his face a mask of utter, abject defeat. Ms. Periwinkle adds, her voice like chipped ice, and it appears snippets of this charming performance are already trending on social media, Ms. Olsen. The world is getting a front-row seat to your professionalism. Confronted with Anna's tearful testimony and the cold, hard, viral evidence of her own monstrous behavior, Karen's carefully constructed victimhood shatters. She tries to lash out, that video is fake. It's been edited. Anna is lying to save her own skin. She's just a stupid trainee who misunderstood everything. It's a conspiracy. Mr. Sterling, he set me up. But her denials are pathetic, unhinged. The turnaround is complete. The hunter is now the hunted, cornered and exposed. Chloe, through her blubbering, starts to crack under the pressure. Karen. I didn't. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Maybe we did exaggerate a little, but she made us. A desperate, self-serving betrayal, another blow to Karen's already sinking ship. Mark, seeing his own doom approaching, tries to throw Karen entirely under the bus. I was completely misled by Ms. Olsen. She has a very forceful personality. I had no idea of the extent of her unprofessionalism towards the passenger until now. Then, the booming voice of CEO David Harrison fills the room, cutting through Karen's desperate denials like a laser. His face on the screen is a portrait of controlled fury. "Ms. Olsen," he thunders, and even through the speakers, the raw power in his voice makes everyone flinch. "I have known James Sterling for over 20 years. He is a man of unimpeachable integrity, profound generosity, and immense patience that you, Ms. Olsen, have stretched beyond any reasonable limit. The behavior I have witnessed on that video, the testimony I have heard today, it doesn't just disgust me, it enrages me. It is a betrayal of everything this airline stands for, a stain on the thousands of dedicated professionals who work for us. Your actions were not just unprofessional, they were inhumane." This direct condemnation from the absolute top is the ultimate blow to Karen's tattered ego. Karen, now completely unraveled, her face streaked with tears and mascara, unleashes a torrent of hysterical rage. "You're firing me, aren't you? All of us. Because of him. Because of that. This isn't fair. I've given 10 years of my life to this airline. I won't let you destroy me. I'll sue. I'll go to every news channel." Her meltdown is spectacular, a desperate, cornered animal lashing out. But Ms. Periwinkle just watches her, her expression unmoved, waiting for the tantrum to subside. The reckoning is in full, brutal swing. The lies have been exposed, the truth has triumphed, and the antagonists are teetering on the precipice of total annihilation. The air is thick with the promise of judgment, a judgment that will be swift, severe, and utterly unforgettable. What will that final verdict be? The entire room, the entire audience, waits with bated breath for the final, crushing hammer to fall. The conference room still hums with the dying echoes of Karen's hysterical meltdown. Her face is a ruin of tear-streaked makeup and contorted rage. CEO David Harrison, his image on the giant screen radiating an almost biblical authority, lets the silence stretch for a moment, allowing the full weight of Karen's pathetic implosion to sink in. Ms. Periwinkle sits, calm and resolute, a file open before her, as if she's merely ticking off items on a very grim checklist. This isn't a negotiation, this is a sentencing, and the verdict has already been decided in the highest court of corporate justice. The first blow of this final showdown is the chilling finality in their expressions. Ms. Olson, CEO Harrison begins, his voice devoid of any emotion save for a profound, weary disgust that cuts deeper than any shout could. Your outburst changes nothing. Your threats are empty. Your record, and your deplorable actions on Flight 712, speak for themselves with deafening clarity. You engaged in vile, racist harassment of a passenger. You abused your authority. You deliberately falsified an official report. You systematically bullied and attempted to coerce a junior colleague into participating in your deceit. You have shown no remorse, only a petulant refusal to accept responsibility for actions that are, frankly, a disgrace to this uniform and an insult to human decency. Each point he makes is a precision hammer blow, dismantling any shred of dignity Karen might have clung to. He continues, his gaze unyielding, therefore, effective immediately, your employment with this airline, Ms. Karen Olson, is terminated. For gross misconduct, for racial harassment, for dereliction of duty, for creating a hostile environment, and for conduct unbecoming of any employee, let alone one in a position of trust and passenger safety. You will be permanently blacklisted from this airline and all its global affiliates. Any pending bonuses or stock options are forfeited. Your final paycheck will be mailed to you, less deductions for any damage or costs incurred as a result of your actions today. This is not negotiable. This is final. That word, terminated, echoes through the room, a death knell for Karen's career, blow, so absolute it leaves her momentarily speechless, her mouth agape in stunned disbelief. But the blows don't stop there. CEO Harrison then turns his steely gaze, or rather his on-screen projection of it, towards Chloe Novak and Mark Henderson. Ms. Novak, he intones, your active complicity in Ms. Olson's abhorrent behavior, your enthusiastic participation in the harassment and the subsequent cover-up, make you equally culpable. Your employment is also terminated, effective immediately, for the same reasons. Mr. Henderson, your pathetic attempt to abdicate responsibility at the last minute is noted, and dismissed. As purser, your failure of leadership was catastrophic. You not only failed to stop Ms. Olson's initial abuse, but you actively enabled it, participated in the conspiracy to defame Mr. Sterling, and abused your authority by misinforming the captain. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. 3 careers, obliterated in under a minute, a devastating blow to the toxic ecosystem they had cultivated. Karen, jolted back to a semblance of fight by the sheer totality of her ruin, makes one last, desperate lunge, a pathetic attempt at a turnaround that falls utterly flat. You can't just do this, she screeches, her voice cracking. I have rights. There are procedures. I'll get a lawyer. I'll sue you for wrongful termination. I'll sue for defamation. I'll go to every media outlet and tell them how this airline protects rich thugs and fires loyal employees. You haven't heard the last of me. But Ms. Periwinkle simply raises an eyebrow, a small, dismissive gesture that is more powerful than any verbal retort. Ms. Olson, she says, her voice cutting through Karen's tirade with icy precision, this airline has a robust legal team that has already reviewed every aspect of this case, including your colorful employment history and the irrefutable evidence of your conduct today. We are fully prepared for any frivolous legal action you may contemplate. As for the media, I believe they are already well acquainted with your particular brand of customer service, thanks to your own actions. You are, as they say, viral. That cool, calculated dismissal is a final, crushing blow to Karen's threats, rendering her utterly powerless. The role reversal is now absolute, a stunning turnaround that is almost painful to watch, yet deeply satisfying. Just hours ago, Karen was the queen of her little metal kingdom, dispensing judgment and humiliation with impunity, while Mr. James Sterling was her helpless target. Now, Karen is a broken, ranting mess, stripped of her job, her dignity, her power, while Mr. Sterling, though not physically present, is entirely vindicated, his name cleared, his ordeal acknowledged at the highest level. His quiet phone call has unleashed an avalanche of justice. The sheer, unadulterated power of truth, when wielded by someone with integrity and the means to be heard, has triumphed over blatant bigotry and systemic inertia. And then, a moment of genuine light, a positive turnaround that offers a glimmer of hope amidst the wreckage. CEO Harrison's expression softens, just slightly, as he addresses Anna Kowalski. "Ms. Kowalski," he says, and his voice now carries a warmth that was entirely absent before, "your courage in speaking the truth, under immense pressure and at considerable personal risk, has been extraordinary. You have demonstrated the integrity, the moral fortitude, and the commitment to doing what is right that we desperately need more of in this company, and frankly, in this world. Your job is secure. You will receive any and all support you require. Furthermore, we will be formally commending you, and I personally see a very bright future for you with this airline, should you choose to pursue it. You are a credit to us all." Anna, tears of relief and vindication now streaming freely, can only nod, a powerful blow against the culture of fear and silence that Karen had tried to impose. Ms. Periwinkle then stands, signaling the end of the proceedings. Security will now escort Ms. Olson, Ms. Novak, and Mr. Henderson from the premises. Their company credentials have been revoked. This airline will be issuing a formal, public apology to Mr. James Sterling. We will also be conducting a full review of our internal reporting and training protocols to ensure that an incident of this nature, this egregious failure of our core values, can never, ever happen again. This is not just about punishing the guilty, it is about reaffirming our unwavering commitment to respect, dignity, and equality for all our passengers and our employees. This decisive statement, this commitment to systemic change, is the airline's own attempted turnaround, a pledge to learn from this catastrophic failure. The message is clear, the entire rotten branch has been lopped off. And so, the climactic showdown concludes not with a whimper, but with the resounding crash of careers and the decisive roar of justice. Karen, Chloe, and Mark, once so smug, so secure in their petty tyranny, are now nothing more than disgraced ex-employees, their futures bleak, their names synonymous with shame. As security officers step forward to lead them away, Karen lets out one final, incoherent shriek of rage and despair, a pathetic epitaph to her reign of terror. The immediate consequences have been delivered, swift and brutal. But what of the long-term fallout? What lessons will truly be learned? And where do all these shattered pieces go from here? The air is thick with the dust of their downfall, and the silence that follows is heavy with the weight of what comes next, the moral of this horrifying, yet ultimately vindicating, story. Let's begin with the architect of her own spectacular implosion, Karen Olson. Did she learn her lesson? Did she find redemption? Don't hold your breath. The blow of her termination was just the beginning of her downward spiral. That infamous video of her racist tirade? It didn't just go viral, it became a global anthem for how not to be a decent human being. She was an overnight internet sensation for all the wrong reasons, airline Karen, the face of petty tyranny and ugly prejudice. Try getting a job in any customer service industry after that. Impossible. She was blacklisted, a pariah. Her desperate threats of lawsuits evaporated like morning mist as no lawyer would touch her unwinnable case. The last I heard, she was living a bitter, isolated existence, her days filled with ranting at the television and nursing her boundless resentment, a living testament to the fact that hate is a boomerang that always, always comes back to hit you right between the eyes. That, my friends, was the final, crushing, blow to her wretched life. And what of her sniveling accomplices? Chloe Novak, the loyal handmaiden of hate, found that her association with Karen was like a permanent stain she couldn't wash off. She too became unemployable in any role that required even a shred of human decency or trustworthiness. The blow for her was a life of quiet desperation, hopping between dead-end temp jobs, forever haunted by the shame of her complicity, a stark reminder that standing by and cheering on evil makes you just as guilty. Mark Henderson, the purser whose spine was MIA. His termination was a brutal blow to his inflated ego and his carefully constructed career. He tried to reinvent himself, to downplay his role, but the stink of his failure, his cowardice in the face of blatant injustice, clung to him like cheap cologne. He learned the hard way that true leadership isn't about titles or authority, it's about integrity and the courage to do what's right, especially when it's difficult, a turnaround in understanding that came far too late. But amidst this wreckage of ruined lives, there were beacons of hope, powerful turnarounds that restore your faith in humanity. Mr. James Sterling, the man they tried to break, emerged from this ordeal not just with his dignity intact, but amplified. He accepted the airline's profound apology, not with arrogance, but with grace. And in a move that speaks volumes about his character, he channeled his experience into positive action. He didn't just demand change, he partnered with CEO David Harrison to help overhaul the airline's diversity, equity, and inclusion training programs, making them a model for the industry. His company continued to soar, his influence grew, and he became an even more powerful voice advocating for respect and equality, proving that true strength isn't about how loudly you shout, but how steadfastly you stand for your principles. This was his magnificent turnaround, transforming a personal blow of discrimination into a global platform for good. And let's not forget the courageous Anna Kowalski, the junior flight attendant who found her voice in the face of overwhelming pressure. Her turnaround was nothing short of inspiring. Far from being punished, her bravery was celebrated. CEO David Harrison personally ensured she received commendations, support, and opportunities for advancement. She became a symbol of integrity within the airline, a mentor to new recruits, a living example that one person, choosing truth over fear, can indeed shift the entire culture. She proved that the loudest blow you can strike against injustice is often the quiet, unwavering voice of conscience. And what of Mrs. Amelia Davis, the quick-thinking passenger with the phone? Her video didn't just help bring down Karen, it ignited a global conversation, empowering countless others to speak out against everyday racism. Her satisfaction was knowing she played a part, a small but crucial turnaround, in the fight for decency. The airline itself faced a public relations inferno, a massive blow to its reputation. But to their credit, under CEO David Harrison's leadership, they didn't try to hide or deflect. They confronted the ugliness head-on. They issued a full, unequivocal public apology to Mr. Sterling. They invested heavily in the new, comprehensive training programs. They implemented stricter oversight and more robust channels for reporting misconduct, fostering a culture where prejudice would find no quarter. It was a long, arduous turnaround, but by demonstrating genuine remorse and a commitment to systemic change, they slowly began to rebuild trust, proving that even large corporations can learn, evolve, and strive to be better. The friendship and mutual respect between David Harrison and James Sterling became a powerful alliance for positive change within the industry. So, what are the earth-shattering, life-altering moral lessons we must carve into our hearts from this saga? First and foremost, never, ever judge a book by its cover. Karen looked at Mr. Sterling's tracksuit, at the beautiful, rich color of his skin, and her mind, poisoned by ignorance and arrogance, leaped to the most vile and demeaning conclusions. She saw a target, not a titan. She saw broke, not brilliant. She saw monkey, not a man of immense dignity and power. That single, catastrophic error in judgment, that disgusting blow of prejudice, was the seed of her entire undoing. If she had taken one moment, just one moment, to see the human being before her instead of the racist caricature in her head, her life, and his day, would have been profoundly different. Secondly, words have power, the power to build, and the power to destroy. Karen's words were not just casual insults, they were weapons, each one a carefully aimed blow designed to strip Mr. Sterling of his dignity, to make him feel less than human. But that power is a double-edged sword. Her own hateful words, captured for the world to see, became the evidence that annihilated her career and her reputation. Conversely, Anna's words, quiet and trembling but rooted in truth, had the power to dismantle a conspiracy of lies. Mr. Sterling's calm, firm words, and ultimately his call to David, had the power to bring an entire system to account. Choose your words wisely, for they will write the story of your life, and the consequences, good or bad, are inescapable. And finally, the most crucial turnaround this story demands from all of us: silence in the face of prejudice is complicity. It wasn't just Karen's active hate that was the problem, it was the initial silence of others, the fear, the indifference, the subtle nods of agreement from passengers like Mr. Henderson. These were all tiny blows that allowed her poison to spread. It took the courage of Anna, the discreet action of Mrs. Davis, and the unyielding resolve of Mr. Sterling, backed by the decisive leadership of David Harrison, to turn the tide. Each of us has a responsibility. When you see injustice, when you hear bigotry, when you witness someone being demeaned, do not be silent. Speak up. Stand up. Record it, if it's safe to do so. Support the victim. Be an ally. Because the only way to fight the darkness of prejudice is to flood it with the bright, unwavering light of collective courage and a steadfast commitment to respect for all. This story, in all its ugliness and ultimate vindication, is a call to action. Look around you. Look within you. Challenge your own biases. Teach your children well. Demand better from your institutions, and from yourselves. Let the spectacular downfall of Karen Olson be a stark warning, and let the quiet strength of James Sterling and the bravery of Anna Kowalski be your inspiration. Let this be the turnaround point where we all decide to be a little kinder, a little braver, a little more just. Because a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect isn't just a dream, it's a responsibility we all share, a future we must all build, one righteous blow against hatred at a time. Don't just watch this story, live its lesson. Be the change.